The naked little kid in the picture was a stand-in. And I'd like to be able to say that after that skiing episode with Ron that I became the next Jean-Claude Keeley of Oregon, but the truth is I think that was the last time I ever skied, Ron. Thanks for the memories. It was great. I want to thank Allison and the Alumni Association. Dean Paris is a tremendous leader of this law school and someone I admire greatly, and all the wonderful speakers and friends who've been here tonight and made the remarks that they've made. It's been a long evening, and you've been very patient, so I want to keep my remarks very brief. There are only two subjects I'd like to mention, and both of them have been alluded to somewhat. The first is the namesake of this event, John Jaqua. There are others in this room, including his partner Bill Wheatley, who's over here to my left, and one of John's closest friends ever, and a wonderful, wonderful lawyer who knew John much better than I did. But I did know him well, and I was proud to be his friend. John, if he were here, in addition to asking us to wrap it up as quickly as we can, would be the first one to admit that he was a very, very complex person. He was a world-class athlete, something he didn't talk about very much. He was one of the fastest sprinters in the world in the 1930s. He was a true hero of the Pacific Theater in the Second World War. He was a Navy fighter pilot who lost almost everyone else in his command and came home and never got over the guilt that he was one of the survivors. He was a formidable businessman, and foremost, he was a lion of the bar. But he was also thoroughly human. Like all of us, he was sometimes ruled by his own doubts, his regrets, his insecurities, and his blemishes. But in my view, what allowed John to achieve true greatness that few other people have ever reached was his commitment to the redemptive power of community stewardship. In partnership with his wife, Robin, who really was the leader of his soul, much like my wife Myrna is the leader of my soul, John became one of the most effective and insightful civic patrons in Oregon history. The Jaquas achieved that status through a remarkable balance of heart and head, emphasizing the broader needs of the community, compassion for individuals in need, and a recognition that investment in public higher education, especially the University of Oregon School of Law, was among the most potent ways to ensure freedom and justice for all Oregonians. John understood that the relationship between equal access to justice under the rule of law and liberty is a progressive one. And that progression can best be nurtured by vigorously supporting public institutions of higher learning and by making access to the power of the law broadly available to students with aptitude, desire, and discipline, regardless of social or economic circumstances. So John's legacy flourishes here at Oregon's only public law school, which brings me to my second point. When tonight's speakers and I attended law school a full generation ago, and in fact it's more than a full generation ago now, the average salary of a new lawyer in Oregon, whether in private practice or the public sector, was about the same. And the total cost of 3 years' tuition at our law school was about a third of a year's salary. Today, however, that total cost exceeds the average annual salary of many, if not most, new lawyers in private practice, and it far outstrips the annual salaries of judicial law clerks, new legal aid lawyers, and others entering public service. For students like my daughter Amy, who's a 1L at the University of Oregon, who are fortunate enough to have strong family economic support, the burden is tolerable. But what about the many young lawyers who graduate with combined undergraduate and law school debt exceeding $100,000 and in some cases $150,000? For those students, the burden can be smothering. It may force them to postpone or forego family and career choices for many years, and in some cases it may keep them from choosing the law as a career altogether. In fact, as I was listening to my friends speak tonight, I was counting, and it seems to me that at least half of us, including me, might well have opted out of law school in today's economic climate. The skyrocketing relative cost of legal education is causing public law schools across the country, including our own, to turn increasingly to private funding and especially higher tuition rates simply to survive. In the meantime, well-intentioned programs like the Loan Repayment Assistance Program and tuition scholarship relief can provide some salve, but they're not nearly enough. The consequences of this trend, if it isn't corrected, is the risk that public legal education will increasingly be the realm of the affluent and the indentured. The problem is systemic and it's complex, but if John Jaqua were here tonight, he would tell us that it is not insurmountable. I'm confident that he would urge us to do two things. First, support the law school's public mission in any way we can, whether by giving time, money, or our voices, and where possible, all three. Second, in concert with the university and law school administrators, find more effective ways to educate and influence legislators and other public policymakers to support the critical importance in a free society of providing an affordable, high-quality public legal education to qualified students regardless of their financial means. Because the stakes are so high, where that process takes us should not be constrained by traditional thinking about how to fund public higher education or conventional ways of delivering legal education services to students. The public mission is what sets this institution apart, and achieving it for the next generation in the proper balance of cost and quality would give us much reason to celebrate. So with that, I'll thank you for your friendship, for the goodwill that flows from gatherings like this, and wish you good night. Thank you very much.